Cool, so we're going to start off with a few quick fire questions. Oh, you guys can introduce yourself after the quick fire questions, eh? Yep, cool. No, actually, that's a bit. This is John, this is Wilco, and this is Ash, and they're going to be sharing. Yeah, let's give them a clap. They're going to share a bit more about themselves a bit later, but we'll start off with some quick fire questions. So what is your biggest dad fail?
My biggest dad fail.
Oh yeah, not turning the microphone on when you get asked to speak at
Okay,
church.
so my second biggest fail, I think, was selling my half of my section back when I was in Henderson Street and robbed the kids of somewhere to play.
Oh, okay. Cool. That's cruel.
It is, it's awful.
Wilco?
Had to think about this one, and there's probably an incident where we ended up going, we're on holiday in Europe, and Felicity came off a seesaw, and me being a stoic dad, you'll be right. Turned out she had a completely busted collarbone that was sitting like that. So, but she'll be all right. She's fine.
Very good.
Not sure if my one's a dad fail or a husband fail, but it's when the kids are young, taking a lot of those first moments and getting really excited while Amanda was at work and just going with it. So one of them was my oldest boy, Levi. I was sitting on the couch. He was quite young. I can't remember how young, but he was eating one of those real flavourless sort of cracker things that kids eat. I think they're called rusks or something like that. And I was eating a ginger nut biscuit. And I was like, oh man, this isn't fair. So first ever biscuit he's ever had without Amanda there. So I did hear about it.
Oh, nice. The ginger nut for your first biscuit. What is your proudest dad moment?
My proudest dad moment, there's a lot of them, but I think probably it's becoming a grandfather, having a little grandson. I think that was just sticks out there. Yeah.
Better luck second time.
Rough call.
Sorry, Jesse. What is your proudest dad moment?
Well, like John, I think there's so many to name, but I think probably at the top of the list was when I've got 3 kids. For those of you who don't know, 3 kids, and every time one of them came into the world, actually holding them the first time was just like. Yeah. I stood at the front of the cube when God handed out emotions, and I was just blubbering with every one of them. So.
Nice.
Look, I can't beat that. No, for me, it's not one single moment similar to the guys. It's a series of moments. It's that when they're born, it's the first time they walk. It's the first kind of everything. So yeah, just every moment, every series of moments, and every sort of new thing they do in their lives is quite cool.
Cool, awesome. What was a nickname of yours growing up?
Well, I never had a nickname so much, but my dad used to call me Jonathan Joe with a mouth like an O. It didn't really catch on, fortunately, and no one is allowed to call me that.
Didn't really have one as a kid, but as a teenager, late teenagers, I went overseas, and it wasn't the first time in a plane, but I haven't got a cast iron gut when it came in being in a plane, and I used to bath on the plane, and so I got named Chuck Chunder. So.
Having a first name of Ashley, I go by Ash, but it's Pashley, Crashley, Dashley, Cashley. But when I was in the Navy, probably my best one was Head, which was in relation to the size of my head. They had to make me a special hat.
Very good. Just a couple more. What is a hidden talent of yours?
Okay, I don't know if this is a talent, but it's certainly hidden, is that I can kind of imitate a Tui's bird call, but back from the 80s when they used to sing differently.
Oh, prove it.
Okay, I've got to have a straight face for this. Okay. I'll see if I can. This is...
Oh, let's give him a round of applause. Nice.
Don't really have any talents in as such, but some of you might have seen me water skiing. I love my water skiing, so yeah, I'm really passionate about it. I really love that, and I think I'm quite good at it. So
nice.
Keeping in the theme of animals, I can purr like a cat, but I'm not entirely. I'm not entirely sure the microphone will pick it up. and my face does a weird thing when I do it, so it's not appropriate.
Surely.
I'll try. Cheers. Much like John, I need a straight face.
Oh.
It freaks some cats out, eh? I've had the odd.
Very good. And final quick fire question. What is a guilty pleasure of yours?
I've kind of repented of it, but it was corn chips, sweet, what do you call it, sour cream with sweet chilli and a Corona after a hard day's work.
Nice.
Yeah, but now I don't need that.
Mine's European cars, and I haven't repented of that.
Probably similar to most people, chocolate, but I used to take it to extremes. So I had a hidden stash in the house, which I knew everyone knew where it was. So I had a secondary hidden stash, probably in more than one location, eh, darling? There's lots she doesn't know about.
Very good. Cool. Well, obviously, most people here know you guys, but there might be a few people here that you're new to them. So I wonder if we could just start off by sharing a few facts about ourselves, and everyone can kind of get to know you a little bit more.
Okay, so we've got 1 minute, right? So it'll be pretty abridged. Right, so John is my name, John Thomson. I've got 3 sons, Jesse, who is my youngest, along with Jordan and Dylan. And Jordan's married and has one little son, live in Auckland. I currently drive a tanker for Fonterra. I've done a lot of different things in my life, worked for the council, I've had my own business for 20 years on the horticultural side of things. Lived in this district for 24? Something like that, yeah. So I'm feeling quite local here. Have also lived 10 years around Pukekohe, and I was originally born in Otrahonga in the King Country, farming kind of background sort of. I don't know, that covers roughly.
That's great.
Yeah, okay, there we go.
Nice. King country.
Right, well, with a name like mine, obviously I'm not a Kiwi by any means of the word, but I feel like I know anyway. So I was 9 when I came out. I was born in Holland. So those of you who are into cars, I was a low mileage used import.
No airbags.
No airbags, no. So I've got a lovely wife, 3 kids, and lovely daughter-in-law and another daughter-in-law to be who's not here today, unfortunately. And love the family to bits. I am farming stock. So Dad was a farmer. I was farming for 20 years, but now we have a engineering business just on the outskirts of town here, and we've been doing that for 21 years now. Born in Holland, lived around Papakura for a little while, but since about 79, been around here. So definitely a local.
Thanks, Wilco.
Not experienced as these gentlemen, so it'll be a bit shorter. Ash Clements, married to Amanda, 3 boys, born and bred local, so born in Apotiki, raised in Kawerau of all places, and moved to Auckland to join the Navy. I was there for about 3.5 years, and that's where I met Amanda and brought her back. So I cast the net wide. And yes, I'm a detective sergeant in the police. Been in the police for about, I think I'm my 18th year now. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. One thing I love personally about church is just the diversity of people that seem to make up a church, and even 3 different professions and backgrounds and things like that. And I'm just wondering if each of you could maybe share how you actually came to faith.
Okay, so I was born in a Presbyterian family. I was christened and confirmed later in life when we were told that, we were followers, therefore we need to be confirmed. So we did the classes and everything else. I meant it at the time. So I guess I was in church for my entire juvenile life, if you want to call it that. Youth group and everything else, loved all that, but then went away and sort of for maybe 3 or 4 years sort of thing, living with other people and university and things like that, and just faith just kind of became a distant thing, and I'd kind of made that in my mind actually going, oh, well, I guess that faith issue was sort of something that was, for a lot of people, was something that was, but now it's not. And you talk to any amount of people and you'll find that a lot of them have had some kind of faith background, but not relevant. So that's what I thought I was going to be, but God sort of came looking for me and sent a friend along who was involved in the Te Puke Baptist, and I went from a very boring part of life where I had not a lot of friends and nothing happening, and it coincided in time when I had picked up a hitchhiker once, and he was giving me the old rundown on Barry Smith. Anyone remember Barry Smith and all the end? You know what I mean? We're convinced that the world was going to end in about 2 years. I honestly thought I had like very limited time, so I felt a lot of pressure to kind of like do something. And that weighed on me for a long time. It was probably about a year of solid anxiety of, if I die, I might not be ready. I might not be going to the right place. And I just lived with that. And then I realised that I had to come to the place where if I was going to make a commitment, it was all or nothing. There was no half measures. That's why it took such a long time. But from that day on, and invited the Lord back, it's like colour against black and white. And there's just been this, the goodness and faithfulness of God throughout the years, and trials and tribulations and all sorts of issues. But he is always so faithful, and it's just a joy. Like, I can't imagine not having that assurance of faith where we take it for granted, but it is actually a peace that we have, and there's just knowing that there's nothing we can't face going forward when the Lord's with us. Yeah.
Thanks, John.
Well, I know we all want to get back for a coffee, so pretty much ditto to what John said. So, like John, I was obviously, as I was born in Holland, church there is very state-run to a degree. Well, the church that we went to as a family, anyway. So I was brought up in a family, a Christian family. When we came to New Zealand, we joined the Presbyterian Church in Papakura, and there's an amazing pastor there. They were one of the first Presbyterian churches to actually sort of go down the Pentecostal line. So. So I got brought up in a church family, like John. I was baptised as a kid, and christened as a kid, and then did the what do you call it, John? The confirmation. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Did the confirmation as a sort of late teenager as well. Decided that my life was going to be better than anybody else's, so God didn't have anything to do with that for a while, so I sort of walked away for a little while and did my stint overseas. I worked overseas for a few years and travelled the world a bit, but during that period when I was away from God, I always knew God was there. Like, I didn't want anything to do with him, but I always knew he was there. Anyway, so sort of go forward a few years, in my mid-20s, I went back to Edgecombe, to the Presbyterian Church in Edgecombe there, and Faith Bible College there had a team that came around, and there was something about them that they had, and during the sermon or the thing that they were running, they called people forward, and I said, right, God, this is it, I'm back to it again, and anyway, so I came to the front, somebody prayed for me, I was down on the ground, laying out flat, and these people were just, what's going on here, they weren't sure what was going on, so this was something quite new to them, but from that period onwards, I had recommitted. I felt a calling upon me to then have, I needed, God say to me that I needed to be baptised in water, a deep immersion baptism, so I went back to Presbyterian Church in Papakura there and got baptised. But I mean, move on forward. So obviously met Waverley, because couldn't find a young female that sort of was down to my taste in Edgecombe, so I had to come to Whakatane of all places, and I found Waverley there. So found Waverley. And so obviously, like, our walk as a Christian couple was like, it's great if you can find a partner that's a believer as well. It's so good for your faith. All the time. I guess the Dutch background of me, I was a little bit of if you want to call it an Old Testament Christian. So there was still that, you had to do they had the do-do-dos and had to be the bees before using God's grace to actually work on your heart. And thankfully at the moment, actually, I'm doing a course with a few of you guys that are here. Absolutely amazing course. So if I can make a plug for it, it's an amazing course. It's Sam will tap you on the shoulder if he thinks you're good for it. So I think it's fantastic. But anyway, just I guess you have your ups and downs. Having an engineering business and employing people. So we employ about 9 guys with us at the moment. And lovely Maggie, who's their daughter-in-law, is a backup in the office for Waverley, because Waverley's absolutely munted her hand, so absolutely love having you there, Maggie. But you become a bit of a father figure there for the guys that are working for you sometimes. Those of you who are employers know what I'm talking about. It's, it can be the most frustrating job in the world, because you become a daddy and you become a mummy, and you don't want to become a mummy, but you have to become a mummy sometimes. But you have your opportunity to be able to share your faith with the people that are working amongst you there, and you're using your God-given talents to try and just, you're not trying to talk people into becoming a Christian, but you walk the talk and you try and show people what God is to you. It's not an easy thing to be an employer. Absolutely love it though. It's a tiring mentally and physical job. Just God's always been there with me, I guess. I've sort of wandered, but I've always come back up again, and thanks to the grace of God, I am. So
Awesome, thanks, Wilco.
So quite differently, wasn't raised in a Christian home. In fact, quite the opposite. Not the complete opposite. Not satanic rituals and stuff. Sounds really bad. So I was raised probably more in that era. Boys might need to close their ears. Where pretty much from the age of 13, 14, just, hey, you should be out drinking, boozing, bringing girls home, just living that kind of life. I sort of rebelled a little bit against that. That was kind of my father's, what he had been, sort of grew up on, so that's what he wanted for me. Not sure how many kids are in here. So when I, for example, when I turned 16, I was offered an appointment with a lady of the night, which I declined. That's how sort of different my upbringing was. That said, looking back now, there's lots of God moments, lots of protection, lots of scenarios where you don't know it at the time. I always knew there was something, but my impression of men in church was Ned Flanders from The Simpsons, for those who don't know it. So funny enough, coming to God was a scenario of following a girl to church, my wife. We met at a wine and cheese evening for mutual friends, and she wasn't drinking at all. And she said after we'd had a bit of a conversation, she was off to church. And I thought, it's night time. What's up with that? And it was either a Friday or a Sunday. I can't remember which it was, but I thought, man, that's really weird. And fast forward a couple of weeks, and she invited me to church. And I thought, we'll go to church. I think it was our first date even, and we had a coffee. I didn't drink coffee, so that's a whole other story. I ended up sort of shaking and with the sweats and the jitters from the coffee. But it was actually through the worship, and it was just unreal. And it was that, I can't remember Tony's name. Crawford, is it, from Curate? He was the worship leader. And it just sort of washed over me, and I was like, wow. And they did that, raise your hand if you felt something, whatever the question was, but I raised my hand, and sort of from there, that was it. It was that worship moment that just propelled me forward. And it's been a bit of a journey. It's taken years it's still a journey really, but it took years coming from that non-Christian background to really buy into a lot of things. Like tithing was a major issue. I'm like, what are you giving 10% of your money away to? Well, what are they doing with it? Who are they? And that was me back then. And so there's lots of those developmental things that for a new Christian are quite confronting. So still learning as I go.
Thanks, Ash. Oh, that's awesome. And obviously, like as you guys have all said, life's a journey, and you've all been following Jesus for quite a few years now. Just wondering if there's been a time, significant time in your journey or in your life where you felt like God's really shown up when you've needed him?
Yeah, so in some ways it wasn't about me, but some of you probably heard this. When Jessie was a baby, I don't know, 8 months, I'm guessing, had this terrible sort of croupy cough, but it was beyond that. It was kind of, he was struggling. We'd been in and out of doctors and stuff like that, and we didn't seem to get much progress. And he was, one night he was just struggling to breathe. He was really just battling, and you can see his stomach just sucking right in, and just every breath was laboured. And of the church we were at the time, I think my wife had organised for a couple of the elders to come around, and they anointed him with oil and prayed for him, and he was just there, heaving every breath, labouring, and they prayed and anointed him, and I'll never forget it. It was just like instantly, it just went away. The whole thing went away, and he just fell into a deep sleep right in front of my eyes, and you could see it just happen, and it was so real, and anyone could have seen that was a miracle that happened right in front of me, and he never got it again. So it was awesome, yeah. And as we can see, he's thrived.
That's awesome.
There's been numerous moments where it's just inexplicable. It's got to have been God. That's something's happened that it's beyond human belief, sort of thing. But probably one thing that stands out for me, it's coming back to the business again. I'm sorry for you guys, but it's we as a family, we were going to sell the business in February 2008. We were going to sell the business. It was going boom, 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 and we were going absolutely guns a-blazing. And anyway, long story short, we said, well, we're going to go overseas for a holiday. When we come back, if we still decide we're going to sell the business, then we go ahead with it. Well, overseas, we were on our way back. Freddie Mac, Daisy May, all the banks, Lehman Brothers, boom, just collapsed. Everything went pear-shaped. So that made the business not very viable to sell anymore all of a sudden. Anyway, so we basically got to the point where we had to shut the business down. That day we shut the business down. We said, right, God, this is your business. It's not ours. Emotions coming up again. And we said, if you want it to survive, it's in your hands now. So, amazingly, just that very day, when we said that afternoon, we got an order coming in. And it just, from there, it just went better and better again. And, and I remember Sylvia coming to pray for us as well over that whole thing. So, it was amazing. Yeah, and Rob and Liz were part of it as well. It was just something that only God could do.
Wow, that's awesome.
Cool. Mine's probably going right back to when I met my wife. Actually, the quick backstory is at that time I wasn't with anyone. I was sort of like, looking for someone to love me to love, and this is where I first challenged God. I was driving up to Auckland, and it ended up being the weekend I met Amanda, and driving up at night time by myself, and I sort of looked up at the stars and went, God, if there's such a thing, if you're real, you'll find me someone to love. So, my turn.
Nice. Yeah. That's the biggest miracle. No, very good. So we know dads are all full of wisdom, and you guys have all got a few years under your belt. I'm just wondering if you could each share with everyone here, like if you could go back and tell your earlier self something that you've learnt along your faith journey, what wisdom would you impart to your earlier self?
I would talk to myself about anxiety and how it's really unnecessary. That when you've been through a few things, you find that you always come out the other side. And don't weigh upon the what could happen, what should happen, or, and the other thing I'd say is if there's a door for you to, presents itself in front of you as an option, give it a little tap, give it a knock, see if you can go through it, because It's that old saying, when you come to a fork in the road, take it. It's sort of like it's better to say yes and make a mistake, in a sense, like, you know what I mean? Like, not making rash and stupid decisions, but like take a step out. Yeah. God's going to have your back, and just if in doubt, do it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Invest in Apple. Back before Apple was even around. Now, for me, it's probably the biggest thing is don't sweat the small stuff. Far out, man, God's got your back. And I'm looking at you three now, and you as well as Maggie. Just, God's got your back. All you got to do is ask him. He's there for you. He loves you. If you try and figure it out, which is something that my nature does, is I try and, visually try and figure it out. Now, I'm sure I'm going to do this. Now, come on, God, I can do this. This is my way of doing it. Just hand it over to him and just say, hey, I'll leave it to you, give it to him.
My thing's probably go all in early. So just, when you come to faith, don't hold back on, that's why it's called faith, isn't it? Don't hold back. I was quite reserved. I think even when our first real church was in Whakatane, and sort of I used the excuse of work and shift work to not go as often as I could have or should have, and not really become that involved, particularly in those early years. Like I was talking about before, you grow and you're learning, but if you go all in early, you're going to learn and grow so much quicker. And I'd like to think where I'd be now if I had have done that then. Yeah.
Awesome. That's cool. And you guys have kind of shared a bit about like a lesson you've learnt over the years, as well as how you've came to faith. And one thing we believe here is we never really arrive, that we're always in process, that God's always wanting to do something in us and through us. And just wondering if you could each share, perhaps is there something that God's talking to you about at the moment in your current season of life?
Yeah, I sort of feel like I've been in a bit of a holding period for a while. I sort of say sometimes to people feels like I'm in Babylon, you know what I mean, captivity, but these seasons come and go, so, I'm not too terribly worried about that, because it does say pray for your situation and just thrive in it. But the thing that God's sort of saying to me, I think now, is just talking to me a little bit, through this Kingdom Builders thing that Sam's getting, starting to get the ball rolling in, and it's just like, I don't know what it is yet, because this is all quite new in a sense, but I've have a leaning towards that type of thing about finance and expanding into the, and giving into the church. And it seems weird for me because I'm at a financially more restricted place than I have been, in the past. But it's sort of like, that's not the point. It's about going in on that, and I'm not there yet, but it's kind of like the challenge is to go all in, and that's a challenge to me, because I like to keep a bit of withhold a bit for me, and that's gonna be the challenge of where I'm going through right now. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, probably the big one for me at the moment is just, okay, God, where do you want me to go? What do you want me to do? We're at the crossroads. I think we can fully share this now. We're wondering about selling the business again now. And we're just sort of saying to God, well, look, honestly, is this what you want us to do? We're searching our hearts. We're, I'm just saying to God, well, I'm asking God, I'm asking him, what do you want me to do? Because there's a bit of, I won't say insecurity, but I think the passion is gone. And just going through that stage at the moment of, well, what do you want me to do? And if I do that, what am I going to do then? And I guess for me, I always want to know what God wants me to do. So, and it's just a case of trusting him, I guess, it'd be good to be able to see, well, God's got this written out for me here, and God's got this written out for me here, and over there is that. But yeah, it's just trusting him. He doesn't. You've just got to learn and say, well, hey,
Awesome, Wilco.
Probably actually in the area of worship. So going right back to when Actually, funny enough, it was Jesse's mum who first challenged me to sing on stage at church. I was right at the back of a big stage at Liberty and playing my guitar in the corner, trying to hide away, and she pulled me up on practice and goes, "Oh, sing in the microphone." So I sang, and she goes, "Oh, you're on today. Like, this is Sunday morning. You're singing a song." So back then, I found, I guess, a real anxiety around, am I authentic enough to be doing this? And I remember having an image of Jesus saying, "Just sing to me," and I was like, cool. So that was around anxiety. I don't get that now, but I think it's more in terms of the same thing. In order to be able to just sing to Jesus is to have that freedom to do so. So to know the lyrics to all the songs, to know the chords, to know everything. So when you're worshiping, you don't have to be playing an instrument. Worshiping at home, you're just free. You're just in that place. So yeah, that's awesome. Kind of where I want to be.
That's cool. Maybe final question, guys. Kind of quite a big theme today has just been about the journey, and it's cool hearing just the uniqueness in each of your guys' lives. Sort of talked about like a significant moment where you feel like God really showed up. But I know in my life that there are peaks and valleys, and it's not always these significant moments all the time. Just wondering about like what's kind of kept you anchored or sustained your faith throughout your whole journey and kept you in faith.
For me, it's really simple. It's just basically church, the body of believers. And when you make that the priority, it's the way I see it is, well, it's not just the way the Bible teaches it, is the church is the body of Christ, or the wife, the bride of Christ. And if you're in, you're in. And the thing is, you can come, just turn up. Like, even if you're in a bad spot, whatever, you just keep turning up, because you're changed by being in His presence, and you're changed just by being with fellow believers. And to walking the other way, where you're sort of like on, off, or I might see if it's convenient, isn't really going to bring you very far. And that will drag you through, in fact, not drag seems the wrong term, but it will empower you, and you come out changed. Yeah. And so that's definitely what holds you.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah, like John, definitely you guys. You're all a part of bringing of every one of us, being where we are. Your shoulders to cry on, your faces to laugh with. It's just, that's it. But for me, my biggest one is my lovely wife. It's been, it's just been an awesome rock in my relationship. My parents, my in-laws, amazing people. But yeah, I think just you guys.
Just keep coming back to it, but for me it's worship, big time. So it's that connection. Just to give some examples, I remember going to a practice. So we practice on, it used to be a Wednesday, I think, and now it's a Thursday, but going sick and coming out of practice not sick. Going in angry and coming out laughing. Sometimes thinking, God, I've got this tonight, and then you come out going, I'm so glad I did that. So it's actually a genuine, even in practice, if you're connecting with God, you can't help but be changed. Your mindset's changed, your whole mentality's changed. So for me, if I'm ever in a dark place, I think I was talking to one of my team members at work who's a really strong Christian. He said they just have worship music on in the house nearly all the time. So, and my wife often does that. She'll just put it on in the background, and it's something to say about that. Yeah, big time.
That's awesome. Well, thanks so much, guys, for sharing a bit about your story and your lives, and just really insightful. And I've certainly learnt a lot, and I'm thinking about a lot. And why don't we give these guys a massive round of applause as they make their way back. Maybe check those over there. All right. Yeah, no, that was great. That's, like I said earlier, the thing I love about church is just how each individual in here has a unique story, and everyone's got something to bring, and we can all learn from each other. And I guess a real theme that kind of came through, I thought, was just continuing to show up. continuing to show up in worship, continuing to show up in being in community, just continuing to walk that out and trusting that, that God's actually authoring each of our lives, and in this weird way they're kind of all combined.